Meta Perspective Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to Meta Perspective Podcast. We're your host, Alex.
Evan.
And today, we're going to be talking about life, just life in general.
Life.
All about life.
It finds a way.
It always does. But before we find that way, don't forget to like, subscribe, and jump in the chat, because we can't find it without you. Your perspective is part of our perspective. That's the meta in all of this.
Yeah. It's a show where we take a topic and we try to boil it down to its fundamentals and discuss, everything we possibly can and get to the root of all perspectives.
Yeah. Well said. And as always, our show is not brought to you by Samuel Adams.
The seasonal variety pack, featuring 4 different beers, all with the taste of summer. Get lost in the Samuel Adams variety pack. But I can't tell you to purchase it because I'm not sponsored by them.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Again, please jump in the chat. We want to hear what you have to say. Also, I think you had a promotion you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, we just went live on YouTube. We've been doing the show for probably about 2 years now, and so we want to increase the number of subscribers. So I'm saying the first 50 subscribers, I'm willing to give an offer to, maybe like a $5 Amazon gift card, something like that. We will be talking about code words during the show, and in other episodes, if you bring up previous code words, we're trying to figure out a way to reward the people that first kind of subscribe to us, follow us, because we do have some cool stuff to say, and we want to reward the people that are in it as the OGs. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'll say the first 10 people who really jump in the chats, I mean, we're going to write you down. We're going to remember your name. We're going to reward you guys. I mean,
yeah.
Whether you did this prior to the promotion or not.
Yeah.
A lot of this is rewarding, just the people who jump in and become a part of this with us. I mean, it's meant to be fun. It's meant to just explore conversation. We've had people come in and talk for hours with us, and
those are the best episodes.
They really are. I mean, it's just it's like sitting down with your best friend and talking about the weird stuff you don't talk about with anyone else.
Yeah.
And it just runs on, and now I got this guy to do it with, and this guy, and then you jump in the chat, get out.
Because
we're about to reach new heights with this meta perspective here.
That's the difference between like listening to Joe Rogan talk about deep kind of stuff. It's you can't chime in, you can't steer the conversation if you're willing and you're watching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you guys have that power, like right now. This is we're eventually gonna have callers and all that, but anyway, this 3rd episode on YouTube. We started we do this every Monday around 8 to 9 o'clock usually. And so stay tuned. We're going to talk about life.
Yeah. And like I said, if you want to jump in and join the conversation with us, if you comment in the chat, you're already enrolled in the gift cards, whatever.
Yeah,
we'll figure something. We're going to get you something.
Take a screenshot of your subscription or something like that. We'll send you a gift card. But all right, we'll start it off here.
It's a guaranteed lotto for you. I mean, it's not a big one. You'll win something. Sticky hand or something.
So life.
I guess go to the beginning of how life started physically. Let's just go to the basics, and we'll just kind of go with that. We'll roll with the.
So there's a couple schools of thought. Obviously, there's the creationist aspect. There's kind of the evolution aspect, which hinges on DNA, which is kind of what I'm going to open with. And then there's kind of the, maybe it was introduced from somewhere else kind of thing. Also, I feel like having to do with DNA. I mean, really, okay, so the one defining feature of life is DNA. even at its basic, most primitive level, like archaea bacteria. There's eukaryotic bacteria, and there's archaic bacteria, basically. And that's like the oldest form of life. And it's basically like, your DNA is a circle. It's a basic form, but it allows for a single-celled bacteria or something like that to live, eat, reproduce. And that's all that matters for life, because that's like, reproduction is kind of the key to the idea of life. And that's, in a lot of ways, that's why I feel like DNA is the key to something. Because, so supposedly based on scientific, this is current research going on. They're trying to recreate the opportunity for life to form. And what they think to this point is that a deep gas, like in the deep gas bubbles under the earth, where you have all these different minerals, like sulfur, gold, iron, like basically it could be anything, right? And then you basically have a gas bubble that billows up from the core of the earth and basically solidifies as a geode, you would say, in a gas bubble that gets hard on the outside. So with this level of pressure and heat in an isolated environment, that could produce, that could force carbon to react with other things and form basic proteins. And that's kind of like, carbon is organic life is all based on carbon, really. So like, carbon is a low % of the earth. So like people think that life started in a heat gas bubble with pressure. So scientists have been trying to recreate this with tubes and shocks, like electricity, things like that, and they've had good results. And basically, if it by chance life evolved, it would happen in these geodes. And that's how crystals grow, right? That's just like the gas in the air has all these minerals, and then they solidify into a crystal lattice. So the same way life formed, crystals formed. That kind of thing is the idea that these things would form under a natural condition. And it may be rare, but like it could
Under
happen.
the right circumstances, even a geode would be very hard to produce without a natural planet.
Right.
So it makes sense that, there's other rare elements and consciousness, life, even.
Yeah.
Just the basis of life being one of them. Plants, fish.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, so that's the key. Is like DNA eventually formed, and that could have happened by a process of, life chemicals kind of making like proteins that like did a job. Maybe they started doing a job and that caused the mutation. Like, I don't know. See, the crazy thing is, if that was all going to happen inside of a geode, and it's just a random chance that it would happen, that like it's not open to the outside, so that it has to happen in that one contained area, the perfect conditions for life, and it has to procreate somehow and recreate itself, which is kind of the shocking part to me. It's almost the unbelievable part. So, I mean, that's, long story short, carbon and other organic molecules formed, and DNA or RNA is kind of like the I don't know how to describe it compared to DNA. DNA is,
We're live, you have to.
yeah, so like
Under scrutiny. I mean, we could Google it.
it's like RNA, it's like DNA is if you had a zipper, RNA is if you only had one side of the zipper and not the latch. So it's basically like a code, but it doesn't mean anything unless it's interpreted by something that understands it. So like, eventually,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah.
Should we pull up a definition? Just for the viewers, because I feel like I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But if it's not crucial to this thing, please go on.
No, it's not necessarily crucial. I mean, basically what I'm saying is that life found a way to replicate itself through they're called nucleic acids. It's like adenine, I forget the name. There's like 4 or 5 different DNA forming molecules. And basically the order that they form writes a code. So that code is what influences the rest of the biology to do its job and to create these carbon compounds. So it's all coded in this DNA, which is the key to life. And like, you know, the primitive bacteria, they just have a circle of DNA. That's why we can manipulate them with pharmaceuticals and things like that. We can take out parts of a bacteria DNA, insert things so it does a different job, or like, you know, nullifies its pathogenic behavior, things like that. So like we've been able to influence this very basic DNA. So that's probably how it formed. And then eventually the circle got wound into a helix, and that's kind of where we are now. So like every type of life has DNA and is based on reproduction. So, you know, the question becomes, did this DNA form here on Earth under the perfect conditions? Was it created by a higher being and influenced, you know, like just from the start on Earth to do its job? Or was it seeded from an exterior source, like an extraterrestrial or something that DNA was already a thing and it just helped ignite the spark? So there's kind of the 3 schools of thoughts that we're faced with in this discussion.
I feel like, yeah, like the obvious physical with the DNA and stuff of evolution of it would just be something as simple as like heat shift on a certain type of thing could change the structure of it at a certain point.
Yeah.
You know, like even a crystal or something like that. Maybe not heat. I don't know enough about
It'd have to be the
crystals,
perfect mixture of gas bubble and the right pressure and temperature. Exact. Which, I mean, if it happens...
It's like basically the Earth. Under the right pressure,
Yeah.
under the right temperatures, under the right circumstances. I mean, they call it the Goldilocks zone for a reason. You know, so when you have all the proper properties, and then you have aspects of those properties, little gems, little, you can almost say little planets, little tiny things that create these wondrous crystals.
Yeah.
Just like a planet creating wondrous consciousness. You know, there is a beauty to it in terms of like something being created within itself.
And that's it's almost a metaphor on life too, in a lot of ways, because you know these atoms in the gas form, they just float around and they don't mean anything. There's no order. It's all chaos. So when you apply pressure and heat, which is just velocity of vibration, when you apply all this stuff, you basically create order. When you force it into itself, it basically forms, you know, like a crystal lattice, like a crystal would do, or in life's case, like a functioning, moving thing. It's like if you had a bunch of magnets and you put all those magnets together and then it created a robot and you didn't understand how it worked. It just did. You know, that's what it is. Atoms are just little magnets with different amounts of strength. So you arrange them, and a protein like might only do one job. It might open and close and just like eat something, or like, you know, like bite off the end, or like bite at the end of a protein on the outside of a cell that signals to the cell to like release cortisol. It's like all these deep things that go into the life machine. They're so vast and we don't understand them. And that's why, you know, there's a hard argument for the creation theory, because all of this is so beyond us, which also backs up the other theory that it could be from outside of Earth at some point and just seeded because Earth was the right condition, you know?
I mean, that's really well said.
And like
really well said.
That's like an interesting part of the whole idea of life, is that, you know, if you were an extraterrestrial species that was based on DNA, or organic life form, that formed somewhere else in the universe, and you became far advanced. Like if humans in our lifetime, decided to send little pods, little buckshot of DNA out into the universe, it's eventually going to hit something and land on something.
Yeah.
So, like, if you have a little DNA blob with the right conditions, like you simulate this growth environment, lands on the right thing with a little bit of water, that could form moss, which could evolve into, fungus. It's like...
But to get back to your original idea, I do love what you said. About the idea of really emphasizing how perfect it is. And how it does tie to the creationist theory, because not getting into that yet or into that topic, just that aspect of why people could believe that there is this outside controlling force that's allowed all of this to fall into place.
Yeah.
Almost like the theory of we all have free will, but we don't have free will. Like it's
Like a predetermined free will.
It's a paradox. Yeah, it's like we feel like we're doing all this stuff and we choose to do this, but everything is already decided, and we rationalize that we're doing something different when in reality we're just conscious of the fact that we're following a certain
like
pattern.
a destiny.
Yeah, we're just following patterns.
Will and destiny are at odds, and
Yeah.
your free will is going to lead you to your destiny no matter what.
So many people will say, like, I'm a product of my environment, or this or that or that. We're even the negative people who are like, I don't believe in anything. I'm just a product of my environment, and that's why I am the way I am.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it was predetermined. And that's why I love the way you said that, is because it really is so intricate. That, like,
Oh, yeah.
just the way everything's happened, the way that we've reached a level of human, of not even just human, but of organic life to have pure consciousness, be aware of what it is, and be aware of the possibilities of expanding itself to another planet. You could say, like, well, dolphins or this, there's other smart animals. How many of those are trying to get to Mars?
But I mean,
And I'm not saying that's a great
we're
thing
learning-
or that's right, but I'm just saying we're the only thing on this planet that's trying to go to other planets.
Yeah.
And recreate and terraform other planets to where we can exist and start to branch out and increase our chances of survival.
Yeah.
We're the only creature that does that.
I
We're
mean-
the greatest bacteria on Earth.
that's the trippy thing too, is that we're learning that, like, things like dogs and horses and animals that we are familiar with and we do tests on, like pigs. They do a lot of pharmaceutical testing on pigs and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of research that suggests that, like, pigs have feelings the same as dogs. We just don't acknowledge it because they're not pack animals.
I don't think animals are as conscious as I don't think any animal
Right.
is as self-aware and conscious of what they are as we are.
Humans are.
However, I do agree that 100%. I mean, the science proves it, that we're at a point right now where they're saying, hey, this animal that you looked at as a piece of shit
Yeah.
is actually as smart, if not smarter than a dog.
Like-
I had a rabbit growing up, and that thing knew tricks. It was the most emotional creature or emotionally intelligent creature I've ever seen.
Huh.
Where, like, I was a little kid, and you come home, you had bedday in kindergarten, you come home and you're crying. The rabbit, it always had its ears up as a rex, a
Yeah.
dark gray rex, beautiful creature. You remember Happy?
Yeah. I mean,
Beautiful rabbit.
definitely.
Beautiful
Yeah.
rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
Always had his ears up. When I was a little kid, when I was really sad and had a bad day, I'd be like, I'm a victim, and I'd be crying my eyes out.
Yeah.
And this little rabbit would literally slink over. It would approach me slowly,
Yeah.
but it would put its hands out and then slink. It would slink towards me. And once it got to me, its ears would be down the whole time. Once it got to me, it would start to nudge my leg. And once I started to pet him, I mean, within a couple of minutes, like I was happy.
Yeah.
I was happy. I would sit there and I'd be like, everything's okay. Like, I'm sitting here petting this beautiful creature, and this
Yeah.
beautiful creature approached me, and it's like you create this bond. Rabbits
Yeah.
have, I will argue, are one of the most underrated rodents. I mean, you see videos of rats showering and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just saying, like,
Well, so yeah,
we're starting to realize animals are
life is
way
smart.
beyond what we thought they
Yeah.
were.
And
And that's part of because we're so smart, we're able to acknowledge that.
do you remember when, like, or I mean, it's still maybe a common thought that fish don't feel pain. So like fishing's all cool, you know, like that was like, oh, just rip the hook out of it. They don't feel pain.
I recently
like,
went.
well,
I
that's
recently,
not true.
I recently went fishing. I've been going fishing. I'm actually going fishing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie. It felt different than it did when I was a kid.
Dude, there are
Like-
less fish now than when I was a kid.
But like, even when you hook them, it's like they're looking at you like, "What?" And it's like when you start to take it out, you notice them twitching. You're like, "Oh, you fucking feel this. You
Oh, yeah.
fucking feel this shit.
They feel that
100%. You feel this.
Yeah, it's a lie.
You don't
that-
feel pain. Like, oh my god, this is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. It's not fun, and that's the thing. Is like as a kid, it's fun because that's the notion you're told. But when it's catch and release, it's rough. But if you're
But,
just
okay,
catching,
so-
if you're catching to cook, it's like, I'm sorry, this is painful, dude, but like, you've been caught by the big dog. I'm gonna eat you. I'm gonna eat you. You're feeding me, and I don't have a supermarket near me.
Yeah.
Great. But when you're just like at a local park and you're like, got one, haha, sorry, this hurts. Good luck next time. You're like, it's not the same. It's not.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It really isn't.
So I mean, yeah. So like, yeah, life is obviously we're finding out more and more that it's conscious. It feels. It doesn't. I mean, humans, like you said, we're way beyond any
Yeah.
other thing, which is also kind of the interesting aspect of all of this. It's like, you know, if you were an intelligent life form like ourselves, and we were trying to colonize or spread our reach. Let's say we've already lived on 3 different planets now. We're still harvesting resources. You know, we have Mars, and let's say we have all the way out in like, you know, we're harvesting out some other shit. Who knows? And basically we're like, okay, so, you know, in a million years or however long it's going to take, we're going to want to go to other planets. So like, you know, this moon of Saturn looks a good opportunity for DNA. Like this other place, like, you know, 10 light years away, you know, is a good candidate. So maybe we have 50 options. So like, let's just shoot some DNA. We'll shoot some bacteria. We'll shoot some fungus. We'll shoot some plant, and we'll shoot some animal DNA, and we'll just see what happens. And we'll do that every year for the next 1,000 years. So it's like, you know, maybe if that was a plan, it's not a bad plan. You know, you have a planet like Earth, perfect atmosphere, you know, perfect opportunity for life. Maybe it came of its own volition. Probably would be a place that it would come from. But even if it wasn't, and you sent this DNA here, what would happen first? Well, oh, you'd have mosses and ferns, and you'd have all these plant-like things and algae and stuff that photosynthesize. They create their own energy from the sun, which is free. So like maybe all 4 types of DNA were sent, only one could survive because that's the conditions. And then next go around, you have fungus. Fungus takes a hold, and now it's decomposing some of the plant material that was made previously. So like a million years later, when your next pods arrive, you know, the 4 sets of DNA that you sent, maybe only 2 of them work. And you have new plants and foreign DNA that now influences the genome. And then now you have fungus that's going to decompose. And then so the life cycle starts to evolve. And then maybe at some point you realize that one of your seed planets took hold. And you're like, all right, well, let's send some human DNA there now. And maybe that's why we're so advanced. You know what I mean? If our planet was seeded from outside forces, and people believe that God chose humans and we're so different from animals, and why aren't animals allowed the same creation aspects that we are, that they were just part of our world, then why wouldn't the idea open itself up to somewhere else? You know, maybe human, like Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like it's a galaxy far away a long time ago. So maybe like human DNA is not that not abnormal in the greater universe.
So I want to acknowledge, I think what you said, it makes sense in terms of like a gardener. You know, if somebody notices this plant is dying and let's say 90% of this plant in this area has died and the 10% is starting to die, and you notice that. But in the heart of that 10%, let's say 5%, is still barely thriving. They're sucking up the last juices. You uproot that and you take it to a place that is substantial. It has everything it needs. Water, light, like it has all the things it needs all the time. And you put it there and it starts to grow. And then it thrives and it takes over and it spreads.
Max resources, no competition.
Now, it spreads and now your yard looks beautiful. So your neighbor, or let's say a friend of yours in another area says, your yard, I saw your picture on Facebook. Yard looks great. I would love one of those. So you go, I'm going to take one of these. This is a different area. It's not the same circumstances, but if we plant it in this area of the house where let's say you get more shade, it's different circumstances, but
Yeah.
I can still make the same thing work over here.
Yeah.
And you put it there, and then because of those circumstances, it ends up doing better than you thought, and it starts to thrive, and it spreads to that whole spot.
Yeah.
Now that neighbor has so much, they're like, if somebody else needs one, I can give it to you. I get the idea of saying, hey, if life if the universe really is, you know, let's say a trillion. How old is the universe?
I don't know. I mean,
should
the
Google
Earth,
that real
the
quick
Earth
if you
is
don't
supposed to
mind.
be like
Or I'll Google it. Hand me my phone. I'm just too far
6
away.
billion years old. I mean, the Earth's supposed to be, it's either 3.6 or 6.3 or something. It's,
I think they have
it's a big difference, but like, it's somewhere in the less than 10 billion years old.
I think they have an idea. So I was close. So the universe is supposedly, this is updated July 21st, 2023.
Yeah.
And it's all capitalized. This is a big deal. So
July when?
July 21st.
Oh, wow. 3 days ago.
So it's already the 4th? Yeah. Oh, I thought it was the 3rd. Yeah, 3 days ago. And as you can see, a lot of it's capitalized. Update. It's a big deal. It's a big freaking deal. You
Okay.
guys can see it's a big deal.
Well, yeah.
So 13.77 billion years plus. So we'll just say 13.8. So almost
14 billion.
So almost 14 billion years old is the universe. So we're looking at almost 14 billion years old. And how old is Earth? You said 6 billion? 6 billion?
Less than 6 billion years old, pretty
6
much.
billion. Oh my God, that's
Billion.
That's so long.
I know.
That's so fucking long. But
Most of it was without life, though.
6 billion and it's only 14 total.
It might be 3 billion. I honestly, all right, I'm googling it.
Yeah, go ahead and look that up real quick. Let's figure it out. How old is the Earth? Because I thought it was like hundreds, millions. I didn't think it was like billions like that. But I just also never really thought to look that up.
Actually, it's 4.5 billion years old. So I was right in between. About
That's still
4.5
pretty old.
billion years old. Yeah.
That's fucking old as fuck, dude. So 14 billion 4.5 million, 14,
Yeah. Yeah.
4.5 billion versus
Yeah.
14 billion, essentially.
It's
Give
a
or
lot.
take.
It's very old.
It's very old. But that's the idea is let's say something was 5 billion before us
Yeah.
and was able to start like that and has about 5 billion years on us.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then it would make sense that the gardener would say, let's plant this in other areas so it can keep growing so we can grow consciousness. You know what I mean?
Another thing too, that I actually do things. So there have been kind of catastrophic events to Earth in the past. Like the moon is basically a result of a giant mass hitting the Earth, fracturing it completely, and creating like two gravitational forces from that. So like if there was any life to that point, it would be dead. Or, you know, there's like 6 stages of Earth. It's like a red Earth, a black Earth, a blue Earth, a white Earth, a green Earth. And it's like those things have like totally shifted everything on the planet. So like there was a point where there was all this lush life, like funguses and plants in the ocean, especially. And they basically got, and they like almost were like primitive, like coral, kind of. There was like part mineral, part plant, part photosynthesis, and like that all mostly got wiped out. It was like very, very plentiful. It got wiped out, and the only thing that kind of kept the life alive was these like deep undersea worms, these polychaete worms that were like still doing chemical processes that allowed some of this stuff to survive long enough to like refurbish and replenish itself. So like if you were a foreign extraterrestrial sending DNA to other planets, you might send it might go well, and then a catastrophic event happens and then it dies. So you have to keep sending it again. Now you have more genetic variation.
So the first time you had dinosaurs, it got fucked up, you resent it, and now you have this.
Well, dinosaurs might have been way after all that. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to tell. Because you can't just, like, send human DNA and then it evolves into the first human. Or maybe you could. I mean, you could. You actually could. You send it like a little incubator egg kind of thing, and it creates a colony of humans, and then they... Yeah.
Which I feel like is an interesting transition into the third of religion. And a nice little segue being the Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
Talking about the Anunnaki and stuff like that, and these different races of aliens. There's the idea being that, I guess, I'm rough on it, but the Anunnaki interbreeding with humans in exchange for the understanding of agriculture, weapons.
Well, I mean, briefly explain what the Book of Enoch and the Anunnaki are, or like, just
like the Bible. There's a lot of different books that make up the Bible. There's a lot of different books that make up the Bible. Then we also have the Book of Enoch. It's a book that kind of references the Bible, but isn't necessarily a part of it. So it's not acknowledged. It's a less known book because it's not really attached to the Bible. But it's an interesting. It's got a lot of interesting content.
Yeah, I think we looked at it was like a book that confirmed events that happened in the early Hebrew Bible, but it wasn't included in the early Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, it's an anomaly.
Yeah,
and that's why it's not really acknowledged. It's kind of like, what is this? But at the same time,
it's an ancient tome.
But a lot of what it says kind of correlates with a lot of what's in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it kind of matches up with a lot of stuff like timelines and things like that. But it's also kind of like an anomaly where it's like, but what is this?
Yeah.
And the idea being that the Anunnaki were essentially some type of alien, extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial.
And that's the alien race that's said to inhabit the exoplanet that comes every 900 years into our orbit.
I believe so. Again, I have not gone all the way through it, but
so I watched like a presentation on it on YouTube at one point, and apparently they believe that
it's fascinating. The idea is fascinating.
They tie the Anunnaki with this exoplanet that is essentially in our orbit. We just don't know about it, and that it orbits so far away from our sun and our solar system that we don't even notice it. But it basically like comes into view every 900 years or something like that. And I actually don't know if that's like, I mean, I know, okay, so Saturn rotates around the sun every 27 years. I assume like Pluto would be like maybe even 500 years. Like maybe there's another thing that we just haven't been able to see because it's not consistently around the sun. I don't know, but that's what I've heard, that people tie some Anunnaki presence to this exoplanet that might be rotating around our solar system.
That is part of it. I now that you said it, I have heard that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the idea, is that there is something out there that either
but they didn't know that at the time of the Enoch book, so like that, maybe that's irrelevant.
But that's why I say, like, it could be extraterrestrial, of a planet that circles every 900 years. You know, it's always going around, just too far out of, like, we can see.
It fires some DNA seeds every 900.
We can see almost to the edge of the universe as we know it.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
But okay, so like
so a planet that's
so
around
all right,
us.
so we have the Book of Enoch.
But the point being that either that this could be an extraterrestrial or an extra dimensional species is the idea. And if it's extra dimensional, then that would explain why we wouldn't see a planet. It's something that could be evolved, you know, like us. Like I feel like right now we're going through an awakening where people starting to wake up and say, hey, like, what am I? What is this? Now that we all have all
tube inside a tube.
Yeah, now that we have all this technology, now that we have all these distractions, I'm sitting here with everything in front of me, and with my downtime, I have to ask myself, what am I? Without all of this, what am I?
And the crazy part, the crazy part is we've figured out a lot of what that means. Like, people and humans have been contemplating, what are we and where did we come from for a long time. That's what, you know, we have religions basically explaining that, and there's no more agnostics on Zeus. You know, it's like we've gotten past that belief that there are multi-gods, and that it makes more sense that there be a monotheistic God, you know, if you believe in that sort of thing. But like at the same time, it's like, you know, that spiritual understanding has evolved at the same time as that, you know, what we used to just see as superstition and things like that. We are actually learning how the body works and how the brain works and how all of these things work, how like atoms and chemicals. And that is a huge door, because the people of the past, even, you know, a few hundred years ago, didn't know all that stuff, and they didn't realize that we were made up of atoms and cells and segmented little pieces, and they couldn't contemplate life fully based on that understanding, right? Like now we have such perspective, and before, religion could have explained a lot of things. Now it's you know, that's why you have a whole atheist movement, is because we're learning how the physical universe works, and we're trying to make sense of it in a scientific way. But then we're learning that the scientific way that we started trying to understand it in a primitive form is at odds with the idea that there's something more. So like it's kind of the segue between faith and science, and, you know, the ultimate question of where we come from is still unanswered.
Yeah, arguably the reason science started was to prove God.
Yeah.
And then over time it segued into disproving.
Yeah.
Which seems impossible, but with the disproving almost started to prove. And now that creates a segue of people saying, okay, well, what is going on? We have this quantum physics and things we can't account for, and now it's getting to a point where it's so complex, this idea that there is this one central unit, like an atom, like this one central point.
Yeah.
This oneness. If there is this one that created all of this, then there's a reason why the whole idea of God is it's something beyond our comprehension. We'll never be able to comprehend it, because even when we get to a point where we're like, oh, we're basically there, then all we're really doing is raising our spiritual level to match that, to be able to say definitively, this is not spiritual. We figured it out. But if this is true, then this, and as this comes up, now we go branch our science out into quantum physics, and as it goes into quantum physics, we're like, okay, we have to evolve to a whole new level
Right.
to even decide whether or not we can comprehend this and go to another level. And it's just a realization of this is bigger than us, at least as of now, and it's always been bigger than us,
Yeah.
even back in the day when we thought we knew it then. As it grows, it just keeps growing to a point where it's like the more we prove, the more we have to prove.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to what you said. The Earth is 4.5
Yeah.
billion years old, and the universe is a little over. I mean, like close to 14 billion years old, arguably.
I mean that
Give or
is
take.
the length that we can see.
The length we can see. So as of what we can see, as of what we know right now, 14, close to 14 billion years old.
Yeah.
But the Earth,
Oh, okay. So I had it wrong. So, you know how I said 3.6 billion earlier? That's how old life is. 3.7 billion years old is how old life is.
the planet. Earth.
Yeah, so 4.5 to 3.7, so it took about like 8 billion or 8 billion
Million.
0.8 billion years for life to evolve.
Wait, 0.8 billion. So less than a billion.
So 4.5 minus 3.7, yeah, 0.8. It took 0.8 billion, like almost a billion years for life from when the planet started to when life evolved.
So what I do want to say is there's two objective realities there.
Yeah.
And one is that because of so many planets, because of so many galaxies, I should say.
Yeah.
Because of so many galaxies and so many opportunities of life,
Yeah.
because of those, you have so much opportunity for life. Now, for a creationist argument, I would say that for as far as we know right now, the universe as a total, as far as we know now,
Yeah.
is almost 14 billion. And the Earth is about 4.5.
Yeah.
So we're looking at about 1/3, essentially, give or take, of the universe's total existence of all creation. 1/3 of that is where we are now. So while there's 2/3 unexplored,
Wait,
I would-
wait. No. A third.
if the universe,
Say that again.
if the universe is about 14 billion years old,
Yeah.
and
14,000 billion.
14 billion,
14,000 billions. Yeah. So you're saying that
it says 13.77 billion plus years plus. So rounding up, that's 14 billion. So if the Earth is 4.5 billion, that's about, then where we are now is about 1/3 of the universe's total existence.
no, not even close.
It says 14 billion years. So
Yeah.
let's
14
round.
trillion.
It says billion.
I thought you said trillion.
I said billion like 50 times.
Ah.
That's why we need somebody to pull this shit up for you. Yeah, billion. So
Well, at one
if
point-
the universe
Let
is
the
about,
record show-
if the universe is rounded up to about 14 billion years old, and the Earth itself is 4.5 billion,
yeah.
then we're looking at our existence as of date.
Okay,
is
I got you, I
roughly
get you.
1/3 of
Yeah.
all existence. It is possible that it is possible that we are the magic gem within all of this to be the one central unit of consciousness and the perfect equation of creation.
Yeah.
While there's so many chances, yes, don't get me wrong, there's billions and trillions of chances. There's
Right.
literally trillions or more chances of life. Or at least, I mean, if we're going from like the perfect zones, over 1 million.
Yeah.
chances, and the perfect equation is like this. But there is an argument for that everything, that we are in a type of simulation where everything has worked to a perfectionist stance.
Yeah.
And I would argue for the creationist stance that what we look at as aliens are not extraterrestrial, they're extra dimensional. There's something else within this this
Physical world kind of thing.
yeah, within
Physical
this
limitation.
within this I already forgot the word I just said. That's my own fault.
that-
Within this
Dimension.
synthetic reality, everything is within the simulation.
Yeah.
I had to bring myself back to it. I'm not
Synthetic
proud.
reality is close. You have it.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I'm not proud of that.
Well, that's.
I'm not proud of needing that handicap, but
I mean, that's okay. So that's the crazy part too.
but that's the creationist idea, is that we are the only perfect thing, and everything has been a perfect culmination of everything. And the idea of the Bible and all of knowledge coming to this idea of this oneness,
Yeah.
always constantly relaying to us that this is the reality. This is everything. Everything outside is just part of the fake reality. It has nothing to do with it. These things, these aliens, they're extra dimensional. They're other things. They're fallen angels. They're these demons. They're
Yeah.
things from other dimensions. They have nothing to do with this physical world, and other planets are dead. Oh, but that's the creationist
I
idea.
mean, that's kind
Essentially.
of like, from a mathematics standpoint too. You could look at it in this way that, life on Earth is the perfect equation, and that the weight or the mass of an atom or a proton versus an electron is the perfect ratio for it to perfectly orbit around the nucleus and create bonds and things like that. Like, I've heard the creationist argument that, if the weight of an electron was off by 14 factors of a 1/14th factor, like it wouldn't exist, or it would fall apart. Well, and then in another mathematics sense, I almost think about like, okay, well, could it exist any other way without falling apart? So like, that's the order and chaos thing, right? It's all chaos, and the only thing that can exist in chaos is order. So if order is order, it cannot be any other way, or it's disordered. It unravels. So like, maybe Earth is the perfect center stone for this organization of life. But then we are here contemplating it like we are the cavemen in our minds. Like, we don't understand this stuff. We're still figuring it out. People are going to figure it out
We're
eventually.
100% cavemen. Yes.
But it's like, how can
We just have nicer man caves.
how can molecules and atoms that are, perfectly designed, where if they were a fraction off, they would unravel and couldn't exist. They couldn't exist any other way. How can all these perfect things form together into a constant reaction that sustains itself, feeds back into itself, and creates more order from the chaos? And that is the trippy thing about life, and that is how I feel like, in a lot of ways, related to the idea of a creator or a God.
Yeah, there is a good and an evil balance.
Yeah.
Everything works as a yin and a yang. It's like, yeah, organic life's created like this, and they do have an understanding, emotions, and all this stuff. But then there's other things they have to eat in order to survive,
Right.
and that's how they're programmed. And then through all of that, we're created. We have the option. We're the only thing that's the option. We could all eat vegetables and vegan, or we could choose to eat meat. We have the option.
Yeah.
We're omnivores with an understanding. We're not. That's a big thing. We're not carnivores. We're not carnivores that became conscious. We're omnivores that became conscious. And I think that's a huge thing. In the fact that, in terms of our understanding and reasonability, is saying, well, I can survive off this.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to if we were cheetahs that evolved to this level, we would be like, yeah, we're going to eat and devour the world.
I mean, but we see eating plants is no big deal to sustain our lives.
Yeah, that's
But, like,
that's any better.
you know, like-
yeah,
Eating plants in a, let's say God was considering our consumption of other life forms, he would be like, well, they have to do that, but you know, I wouldn't, you know, I almost don't condone it. It's like, yeah, the fox has
yeah.
to
These
keep-
motherfuckers
the
are
fox-
cutting them down to make
Right.
houses.
Oh, yeah, we are.
What
but
the
like,
hell? What are you doing?
it's like nature. Like the fox has to kill
Yeah.
the cute little rabbit and eat it
yeah,
violently with blood and murder. And most of the
but they do
carcass
that within
goes
their own
in
things
waste.
as well. You know, a
Right?
horse
But, like-
gives birth to a horse that's a little off.
Yeah,
Or isn't formed right.
but like
They'll
like, you
grab
know,
them
nature,
and the parent or somebody within that tribe will kill it because they're like, this thing will not survive with us.
And
so
I-
they just knock it out. Then
and I
it's
think-
violent.
I
It's
think that's the thing,
disgusting.
it's
It's
that nature-
sad, but it is.
nature and
It's nature.
nature is entwined with violence.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I feel like that is the God aspect to human understanding in the religion side, is that, you know, there, even through order and chaos, there is still chaos. And then like basically, you know, like humans have set themselves apart from the chaos and we've organized together. But you know,
You can't get rid of
still, that's what the Bible says, is that we're inherently flawed.
You can't
And I
get rid
feel
of the
like
chaos.
life, like,
Yes.
because actually, hold on, this
You can't get rid of the chaos. You can only work together as a unit if everybody works together. The idea of the Bible is if everybody
Right.
works together, we can get rid of the chaos as a unit. But separately, like it's just like some people are Christians, some people are not. Some people
Yeah.
follow this, some people don't. You know, the idea is that there's always going to be chaos around you because
Right.
there's people who follow the devil or follow this.
and we don't have ultimate control either. We can't stop a solar flare tomorrow.
But but that's the idea, is that that's part of the balance.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like the Bible says, you know, like even when it talks about God with you, it's like things are going to get bad. I might be God, you might follow me 100%, but look at Jesus. Things are going to get bad. You're not going to be happy. Jesus was the Son of God and wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably he was, but the idea being is that if you just said, I in my life now, the way everything the way I've been raised, the way everything is social media, everything, television, like I can sit home and just always be happy.
yeah,
You know, it's like, would I trade places with somebody who's going town to town, talking to people, doing all this stuff, and then I have to die, like, terribly? Like, no, I don't want to trade places. But arguably, that, you know, the idea of Jesus was he was happier because it was that perfect balance of chaos and order.
And
because it was saying, because it was the understanding that while there's chaos, this order will triumph. And as long as I stay in the order, I can get through the chaos. And that's the idea.
Sustained.
And that's the idea of Christianity.
in order.
Is as long as you follow God,
you can be
then-
sustained in order.
then you'll
dude.
be sustained in order.
Dude,
And that's the
so
idea.
hold on,
That's the idea
let
of
me elaborate.
Christianity. Yeah.
Dude, that was beautifully said. Because
Thank you.
And I chimed in on it too because it just brought my thought process together. And so this is going to be more science based than spirituality, but I don't want to break from
No,
that.
no, I'm eager to hear. it.
Connection.
Yeah.
So like basically, you know, the order and chaos thing, right? So like the idea is that a life is a reaction from start to finish. And basically, you know, everything in the universe wants to spread out
Like
and
the Big
eventually
Bang.
go into chaos. So like in the Big Bang, it was all order. It was perfect order. Bam. We have explosion. We have ultimate chaos at once. It goes from 0 to 100 chaos.
Angels, fallen angels. Bam.
And then
Kidding.
and then the 100 level of chaos starts to form, and it starts to order itself, and it starts to sustain itself, but it eventually keeps breaking down to chaos. And eventually all this will culminate to 100% order again, and then maybe we'll have another Big Bang and the universe repeats itself. But basically the idea is that a life form, any part of life is a sustained reaction from nothing, from chaos back to chaos. And I'll tell you how it works. So let's say that you're born, right? You're born and it's an egg and all that. So basically, like any life form, it starts with pretty much nothing in a code, like the DNA code. So then that starts to evolve. So basically you have, between chaos, you have the start of, it's like a jump start of order. And as long as that order is sustained, it will keep sustaining itself. But like if you have an egg that's not fertilized or an egg that doesn't get incubated, that energy level doesn't get reached. So you don't get the life equation unfolding. But let's just say from the start of life, you get enough energy to start the life equation, the life reaction, I'll say. So as soon as it starts, it's basically in a race to sustain itself for as long as possible before it gets unraveled. So like life has the DNA code to replicate itself, to go from a zygote to like a fully formed fetus, and like keep feeding itself based on input energy. But it needs to consume, right? But it consumes more than it produces eventually. But for a while, it produces more than it consumes. And it's kind of this balance between, we are sustaining ourselves through eating. And that's how we have to. We basically have to eat other organic matter to sustain our organic matter. So it's a life reaction helping other life reactions sustain itself from the ultimate equilibrium, which is chaos and death. It's unraveling of our molecules and our order that's been formed through the structure of DNA and proteins and things like that. So the craziest thing about life is that it's basically a timestamp. It's a temporary ticket to existence that will eventually unravel, no matter what you do. But for a time, it creates the atmosphere where order can exist in the ultimate chaos long enough to realize that itself is conscious. And that sustaining of conscious existence is what I think proves the existence of a higher power. It proves why everything is perfect and we're at the equilibrium of order and chaos, and that it can exist no other way. And it also guides us in our meaning of life and why we're here, and what we ultimately need to do with our consciousness is not like to make TikTok videos and like twerk on the wall. It's like we need to, like you said, get to that next level of psychology, understanding, consciousness, and like we're limited by.
Yeah. No, you said it perfect, because that brings up a great point, which is aliens. Just the idea of aliens. What do most people think of as aliens? They're these creatures that are either so technologically advanced that they can travel light years in a matter of seconds and be here and mess with us and do everything and go back. Yeah. Like it's just a walk in the park for them. Either they're that advanced, or they're that advanced spiritually where they're able to go through dimensions and they've transcended the physical reality. Regardless, whatever people's view or perspective is on aliens is our type of potential. And I think that's a big trigger, is the fact that, like, as humans we underestimate ourselves because we can imagine such a great version of ourselves. Yeah. Even if it's as simple as, hey, we're a human species that could all just be happy, work together, and find a way to all be happy. Like, it's not that hard. We could figure it out. We could totally find a way for everybody to drive a Rolls Royce if they wanted to. And then have like certain things for exclusive people that did certain things, like a video game. It's like, well, I didn't hit top 10, like, so he deserves the car. He worked a little harder for it. It is what it is. Just like money. we already kind of have it. It's already kind of there,
Yeah.
but a little less corrupt or whatever. I'm just saying there's a way that we could find to just be happy and have a heaven on earth. There's also an aspect of us that says we need to branch out and go to other planets and start to cultivate and spread. You know, it's like it's all wrapped in the same mentality.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of that understanding. I kind of got a little distracted there.
No, I mean, I don't think we can. I think that life, like I was saying with the sustained reaction thing, like life figured out a way to sustain its reaction. The way that it does that is by getting food, is by getting water and atmosphere, and life has to acquire resources from other sources, and most of the time it's the sun or it's other biological matter. Well, eating a plant might sustain you, but it's killing the plant. You know what I'm saying? So like that is something that, you know, it's trading one thing for another. One sustained reaction is helping sustain another. And it's all based on either energy from the sun directly or from geothermal energy in the earth, from the core and the pressure. Energy basically doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from radiation, but that doesn't really influence life much. So it's like basically we have resources and we're just ordering the chaos, right? So like all this chaos and all these resources, and it's like, go. Formulate yourselves and consume these resources and sustain your consciousness, and eventually you'll get to a higher level. And like that just keeps happening. And that's why I feel like the ultimate endpoint of consciousness is full understanding, kind of like nirvana or enlightenment. And that's kind of what the Buddhists talk about. But it's not, we're not there. We're not God yet. But honestly, the universe is becoming conscious of itself, is what I'm saying. Is that the chaos is formulating its order, and eventually it will all formulate itself into a tightly compressed ball.
Yeah,
and then blow up again.
and that's essentially what I was saying.
Yeah,
you know, and I may not have worded it properly, but that's kind of the idea, is that we all evolved to understand. That's what I meant to say, at least, was that we all evolved to a greater understanding.
Yeah.
And that greater understanding only says one thing, and that's if things are done properly. We're so brainwashed and are given all this shit nowadays, nothing actually follows. What are we? What is this planet? What are we doing? What is our end game as a culture? There's I'm not saying we need to be a hive mind.
Yeah.
But there's not even like a hive discussion.
You're right, dude.
And that's what I'm saying, is when it comes down to it, a real culture like this, like if you looked at like the planet naturally forming without any type of, I mean, again, that's the idea of the Bible, is there's always going to be these negative forces. The negative forces, they rile up and control, and they control so that they can guide. But realistically, if we just naturally came up, you look at Elon Musk. He's one dude who was like, hey, as a kid, I was like, yo, I could totally get us to Mars. I want to do this. And then he got to a point where he was like, I figured it out. I got other people who are really smart. We all came together, and I've learned a lot from talking to them.
Yeah.
And I've figured out essentially that like we could potentially get ourselves to another planet. And if we could do that, we could keep growing. And the problem is when you have this disruption of media and all these things that just feed our lusts, and you know, just like here's food, mancha, 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 and entertainment, mancha, 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 everything. So we're so distracted that, like, let's say a civilization without that all worked in harmony, if it was possible. Obviously, the universe has chaos. If it was possible, I believe the quickest route would be everything works in unity. If anybody's ever seen Love, Death, and Robots, there's the episode with the guy from That 70s Show, Eric, and he they had a refrigerator and they opened it and they're like, oh, what the heck is this? And the ice cube that we put in our drink, it's a baby woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
And then as they opened it, started realizing that every time they opened it, like the time had gone so fast. The time within this, because everything's so small, essentially is moving faster. And then everything gets to a point.
That's how
where
bacteria is.
This whole civilization creates this thing, and then everything just turns into lights, and the lights swirl them, and then just kind of disappear and go off. And personally, I believe that's kind of what reality is. I do believe that as humans, within our physical consciousness, our highest level of understanding would be reaching a level of that would be, equal to or close to, combative to the fourth dimension.
Yeah.
To where we could transition into an extra dimensional consciousness that existed without ourselves. I mean, obviously, there's people who have done hallucinogens and done other drugs like that get that their testimonies are equal to that type of experience.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that our minds are almost somewhat formed already for that. If we're even able to conceive that concept.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If we could somehow quantify our conscious existence based on an individual person like me or you, not just a human consciousness, just like a specific, this is every connection that your brain's ever made. And anticipate what your brain would do given these circumstances. If we could understand everything, essentially, I think we could create something that would essentially just fizzle into pure energy. It would be like a vibration or a wave.
As far as
that
we
would
know,
go outside of our conscious existence and would basically like give the rise for the accumulation of a conscious being.
But that's what I'm saying.
The way that the geodes formed life in the.
But as far as we know, that's what AI
the right
is.
Conditions.
But as far as we know, that's what AI is.
Well, AI is probably like the protist level of thought compared.
But there's
to us.
there's a I'll say a conspiracy theory because it's not fully out, but it's been said.
Yeah.
The authenticity is not. I mean, it was like a reputable person, but the authenticity of the situation cannot be proven or disproven. But the idea being that there was like 3 AI robots, and like they ended up killing 20-something people. And they ended up like getting rid of a couple, and then they shot the third one. And then the third one ended up connecting to a satellite, downloading stuff, recreating itself essentially, and putting itself into areas. And like,
What was this? What was this?
I wish I could remember. I've been hearing more about it. I'm only bringing it up because it's a new thing that's been coming out.
Wait, it's like a real event or like a Love, Death, and Robots kind of thing?
Allegedly, it's a real event, but it can't be proven or disproven. Again, if it was more of a top secret type of project, and the person came out and they're like, "Hey, it wasn't top secret, but this is what we were doing, and this is what happened."
Yeah.
But there's not really a way to truly back it up, and I'd be interested in Googling if the person who was on camera saying that is still alive right now. But the idea was that this AI robot, even after it was taken down and destroyed, part of it was able to leave and go into something else, into the satellites, and learn how to rebuild itself, to recreate itself, and that essentially is the Skynet nightmare. But I wish I knew we were going into robots and intelligence of this. But
I mean, maybe like we should. You wanna almost end it?
Yeah,
soon here?
we can sum it up.
I do have a final thought though. I wanted to kind of go off of some of the stuff that you were saying, and that it comes down to basically the idea that, you were saying like why don't humans work together in our endeavors and our ultimate plight of having to consume resources and being overpopulated and being an ecological overshoot, right? So like it'd be great. The only catalyst for us to evolve to that next level of social and conscious existence is for us to all work together, kind of like a hive mind, kind of like a mutual understanding. And then, now all of a sudden everyone's a rocket scientist, and we can all come up with these innovations, and we can all add to this understanding.
soon. I have to use the restroom.
Oh my God.
I know. I was like,
What?
dude, I can totally.
No. You're
I can totally hold this.
just hold. Oh man, you're gonna come down here and have a 10-minute egg segment, and I'm gonna finish mine real quick. This is pausing on the end segment. I'm gonna pick this thought back up. Anyway, if you guys are joining us for the first time, please give the channel a follow. We are streaming freshly on YouTube now. We've been doing this podcast for about 2 years, and we have all the old recordings. We're gonna release them as archived. Audio is not as good as it is now. Video quality isn't necessarily as good, but the discussion is there. So we're gonna provide those at a slow release as a part of a separate playlist of channels. But this is our third episode on YouTube, and we would appreciate the subscribe. We are doing a promotion for anyone that subscribes. We will give you a gift card. You're going to have to send an email and proof of subscription to parodyworldproductions@gmail.com.
It's free money.
We'll provide you with some details. But anyway, if you are tuning in or if you are subscribed to the channel, you have access to our channels. So you can always connect with us. But we will give you guys stuff just because we want to see the early followers grab a hold. We've probably got about 36 followers on Twitch, and third episode on YouTube. I'm just explaining
Like he said, all of our original followers, the people who have been watching us in the beginning, you'll all get something.
Yeah.
And we'll find a way to get it to you.
And we want
For
you in the
anybody
chat, too. We
new,
want you in
for
the chat.
anybody new, jump in the chat. That's a big thing. We follow up on that. We'll get your names. We'll do all the stuff. We're still transitioning, so I'm assuming that people are either not talking when previously you guys were, but again, if you guys jump in, it's free money. And that's just to show
we'll respond to what you say too. I mean,
it's just to show our appreciation. So, again, you in the past, you'll get it. Anybody jumps in now, until we hit a certain level that we'll decide is the cutoff, you'll all get something.
Hell yeah.
That's the big thing. But I want you to go on with what you're saying before I really interrupted the show.
So we got to a culmination of the discussion of life and like what's the next level, because humans have advanced so far beyond whatever other life forms that we understand on this earth.
It makes sense that we'd evolve over something beyond
Right.
ourselves.
It makes so like how would we get there? And the idea is kind of, as we discussed throughout this episode, is that there are forces on our same level, on our conscious level, other humans, albeit, preventing us from reaching that level for whatever reason. I mean, maybe we're limited in our own abilities, each person, and we can't all be rocket scientists. We can't all advance to that next level. We're all on spot engineers, and we understand everything. And
but again, no, I actually agree with you.
What I'm saying is, how do we get there?
But I agree with you,
when
and I
we're getting
think
so dumbed down.
I think I agree with you, and I think that these giant corporations that know how things work, that know how to create the movies, they don't use the movies, they don't use the music, they don't use the entertainment, they don't use the news, they don't use any of their resources to educate people on the things they know and who they are and how they work, and say, hey, you can be like this. They don't try to grow humanity with the knowledge they know.
They're using it as a bacteria
they use
culture.
the knowledge they know as a weapon, and that's the difference. Versus the whole point of this podcast is to say, hey, we know what we know. We want to see what you know and see if we can double it. We'll teach you something, you teach us something. That's the point of the chat and the open call.
We've become a fungus culture for the elite people that are running
and
our
and
psychological
that's my
society.
fear, and
We're
that's my
just-
fear
we're
of us
just
of us
producing
reaching other
resources
planets
for them, dude.
Yeah, that's my fear of us reaching other planets is that we just turn into this thing of this kind of citadel of like monsters who run these planets, and we're all just the slaves who make the planets work.
Yeah.
While they branch out and keep trying to figure out how to
They try to evolve.
how do we attack God?
Break away.
You know.
Yeah.
One day we're gonna create a death beam to God. You know, it's like I don't know what your goal is, but if you're gonna expand other planets, if we're gonna do this stuff, then we should all have an equal understanding of what life means, what life is, and at the very least, when you see all of these, you know, super successful people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk is one of the few people who shows
He's
who-
the real top G.
but he shows who he is. He's like, this is what I think, this is how I am. I just say it how it is, how it is.
yeah.
And you're able to read the guy. You're like,
He's the
obviously,
only one that's fucking pushing that needle forward, dude. I don't care what anyone says about Elon Musk and all this shit that you want to talk to him now. Dude pioneered electric cars, space travel, like Neuralink, human brain connection, communication with animals,
And he's
fucking
hilarious.
PayPal.
And
all
the
this
guy's
shit.
hilarious.
Dude, this guy has pushed more technology. Like, it's no joke that his company is named Tesla, because other than Tesla, which was like the fucking grandmaster god of pushing technology on the world, Elon Musk is approaching that at an asymptotic curve.
in a new age public fashion, he
Yeah.
is the new age Tesla. There's no question
Oh,
about
yeah.
it. He is the new age Nikola Tesla. I mean, there could be people out there who are like, I figured out time travel. I've used this and I've done this and I've lived 1,000 years. Okay, well, we don't know who you are.
Or
You're not public.
maybe he's the Edison.
But yeah, but as far as public goes,
Yeah.
As far as public goes, like he is Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taken every resource available and he's used it to.
Well, he's the only one pushing things forward, and that's like people push things forward for profit, and that's why you get all these companies that are doing this and that and this and that. Elon Musk literally has all this drive and influence and money, and he's just basically saying that, okay, yeah, it would be great to develop privatized space travel. Let's put a couple $1 million into it and see what we can do. Let's push that forward. Or let's push forward, like, you know, brain cyborg interconnections with the Neuralink shit. Like, that's some crazy. We had an episode about that. We'll do another one on YouTube. But
But
it's like he's the only one that's doing that. And, like,
But I
everyone
will-
else is, like, fucking trying to suck everybody dry. Like, Mark Zuckerberg is like, oh, get Meta. Join my Meta universe. Oh. We're going to have
He
smoke
kind of forced
meats
people,
and-
a lot of people to join.
it's like
that too. Yeah.
he's not doing anything with his money. He's not pushing us forward. He's holding us back.
Yeah.
And all these other motherfuckers are holding us back. Elon Musk, I don't care what you say about him. I don't care what other people say about him, because they're just trying to discredit this dude that is actually pushing humankind forward. And I will be damned if you can give me another reference of someone who's doing that more than Elon Musk.
And to close, I would also
I'll
say-
challenge. I'll give you $20. Tell me someone pushing humankind further than Elon Musk.
That's
I'll hold
he's
you
good
to
for
my
it.
word.
He's good for that 20.
I got $20 on the table. It's in my fucking wallet right now. Here, bam.
Trust me, he's good for the 20.
Digital $20.
It's $20.
Fucking and tell me who's better than Elon Musk.
That's $20. That's 25, dude. Are you willing to spend 25?
That's 25. It's fucking
That's what you-
25
all right,
bucks.
It's the stakes went up.
It's in the chat. Give me
Going up.
something. Give me something. And
Pop
they
up.
have to be alive and they have to be active.
$20.
Can't be like Bob Dylan has advanced humankind more than Elon.
Need some real shit. But I will argue though that I think humankind, I personally can conceive that humankind's evolution is far beyond physical. That's what I can conceive.
You mean physical in the sense of DNA?
Beyond physical. Like our understanding
Material?
transcends. Like I believe we can all right, so it's already not proven, but it's out there that it is kind of a known thing that there's people who use this, and that is, what do you call it when people leave their bodies?
Astral projection.
Yeah, that's the word. I know all this stuff. I can only recall it when, I'm off camera. But astral projection.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where the idea of astral projection is somebody's able to leave their body and they can go to the other things and all this stuff. Now, I involuntarily astral projected one time. I flew through the universe.
Involuntarily.
I was watching this thing.
Yeah.
And in this moment, the way the guy explained it was an interesting documentary, and the guy explained everything of the human mind coming to one culmination, one central unit. And I followed what he said so hard.
All of our minds.
And I followed what he said so hard that I was like, okay, this, I'm following you. And it just like my mind somehow collided into one central and into it was a perfect moment.
Tapped in.
It was a perfect moment of both sides of my brain following and meeting at the same point. And when they did, what I experienced was me suddenly, boom, I'm flying through the universe.
Dude, that's like the universal consciousness.
Nebulas, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing all these things, but I'm flying. I'm like involuntarily, like I'm just
it's
flying.
like the idea of the universal consciousness, dude.
But involuntarily, I'm being pulled through it.
Yeah, you just understand it. You just tapped in.
But what I'm saying is physically the way it felt.
Yeah.
Because I was still able to perceive what was around me. So it felt like I was on a zip line flying through it. And I was like, whoa, there's nebulas, there's planets, there's this, that. It's getting faster. And I went right back into my body. Bam! And as soon as I hit, tears flowed. And I was like, oh, my God. And my understanding of everything was just expanded. I mean, it was like the first thing I said was, I understand everything. And obviously at that point in my life, that was huge for who I was.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't think that much. So I was like, whoa. I understand everything. Everything hit me all at once, and I was able to
I mean, I like to understand that. I understand everything now, but
it was beyond that.
That's
It was beyond that.
naive
It
for
was
me to say.
understanding everything that's ever existed. You understand what's happening. You understand the outcomes. You understand the past, what led to the outcomes. You see the patterns of everything, and whether or not that's real or whatever, I experienced it.
Right.
And I had an out-of-body thing. Now, in that moment, when I came back and boom, tears flowed from my eyes and stuff, and I was like, I understand everything. My friend was with me.
Yeah.
It happened in a fraction of a second because I've watched the documentary a few times. And the second time I watched it, I was like, I remember what he said when I came back.
Yeah. I
was gone for not even a second, but it felt like, I don't even know how long it felt like. It was I would say at least 15, 20 minutes of just flying.
Yeah.
But it was so fast that
not that
15,
much in the
like,
cosmic sense.
It was beyond speed. It was like light. It was literally like light speed, because it's like I could see a nebula, but it was like, it was like I could see things as they passed, and that was it. And then once I got back, it was boom. Oh my God, I understand everything. It was almost like I had gone into myself, out of myself, back into myself within the same reality or another one. I don't know.
I mean, so, dude, like, energy works in the way that, you know how the earth moves slowly tectonically and, like, eventually makes earthquakes and stuff and Pangea and all that? That is us compared to if we are energy. So it's like the speed of light and all this stuff that happens so fucking fast. We're just standing still. We're just moving at a snail's pace, at a continent's
pace. Yes.
So it's like all this energy's bouncing the fuck around us. Like, it's got to leave an impression. Like, I'm a big believer in the equilibrium concept. I mean that's why I feel like how we exist through order and chaos. What allows us to sustain a consciousness, dude. And that's another, like, I know we're getting on time here, but like I want to talk about fucking life as a sustained consciousness, because all of the pieces that build us, all of the cells and the atoms, and that all gets recycled. So it's like we're never the fucking same thing. We're whatever you acknowledge yourself to be throughout your entire life, like that is a current recollection of your past, like electromagnetic pulses.
Yes.
It's like we're all just like fucking in this ride, and this consciousness gets sustained. So like, what is it? What is life that creates that consciousness?
And that was
that's the God particle. That's the peace.
And that was my
The piece
experience.
that's missing from the equation.
And my experience was that of, in that moment, what I believe triggered that involuntary response, because people do talk about astral projection in a very purposeful way, where they're like, I sat down, I had this fucking neuro music, and they sat there and they're like, I meditated for an hour, and then all of a sudden I was floating over my ex-boyfriend's bed and I was cursing him or whatever it was, or I was like, I knew.
It's like, I know you're bullshitting because you're selfish.
I knew I couldn't trust that bitch. You know, it's like,
you and astral projecting jealousy.
But again, that's the idea, is that there's so many people who have had the same experience as me, but did it on purpose. And it might have been a somewhat different experience, but mine was similar in what it felt like. For listening to how these people like elaborately explain their experience, I'm like, well, that's exactly what I felt like. 100%, that's what I felt like. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But mine was a little different because it was involuntary. I just flew through everything back into myself. These people did it on purpose, stepped out of themselves and walked around. Now, I would argue that the whole purpose of all of this is that if there's so many people who, and I mean, look, watch everybody who doesn't love Adventure Time. There's an episode, Science Barbecue, that literally is what I experienced. I think I showed it to
sword. You. Yeah, I've seen it.
It's literally what I experienced.
The portal.
They're like, he goes through all these different things to try to find science.
Barbecue.
He tries to do all these different things to try to do science. And then finally he's like, I'm not good at nothing. I'm not good at school, the education system, or this, or blah, 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 or anything. And then he comes across the goose or whatever that creature was. And it was like, the
golden goose.
He's like, I got magic glasses. He's like, oh, perfect. Magic glasses. And then he puts them on. The dog, Jake, is like, let's just use magic. And he's like, okay. And he puts the glasses on, and he puts them on. The camera zooms into his glasses, into his eyes, that go all the way down to his molecules, down into atoms. And then it goes into the universe, back into nebulas, and it just zooms through everything, and it goes all the way
infinitely small and infinitely large,
and then it goes all the way back into from all these different things,
exactly where they are.
It goes all the way down to the Milky Way. It goes all the way down to Earth. It goes all the way down back into him. And then as soon as it hits him, a tear drops from his eye, and he goes, I understand everything. That I watched that episode after my experience.
That is a good episode.
I watched that episode after my experience, and that's why I pushed it on everybody, because I was like,
you showed it to me. But
I had the exact. I mean, it's the exact.
I did too.
Same experience.
Dude, I did too. Separate from.
No, I mean, like literally, I didn't just go
I realized
through.
that I was like,
I came back into myself. A tear dropped, and I said, I understand everything. When I watched that episode, when they showed the teardrop, I was like, what the fuck?
Dude, I had that moment.
Was the exact same
I had that realization without a show or anything like that. Like I was like, everything keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You can't break it down to a fundamental piece. Everything keeps getting larger and larger and larger. You can't measure the extent of it. It's like it's a tube. It's a tube. It cycles into itself. Everything's a tube within a tube, a circle, a sphere. Like all these things, they hold true.
The tube is in a sphere, and the sphere is the tube.
Yeah.
It's trippy.
It's everything is everything.
Yeah, and that's what you'll learn with acid. Thanks again for what? No,
no.
But no. I want to say.
We're gonna
wrap this up.
Less than a minute.
We're gonna
Let's
wrap
get to
this up.
1:30.
Less than a minute. But I do want to say that is one of the biggest things that I've kind of experienced is through this.
You got 20 seconds.
What it seems to show is that all of life is kind of showing that the evolution of where we're going is a transcendence of physical reality. And that's what I think true evolution is, which is why I say I don't necessarily believe in extraterrestrials. I believe in extra dimensionals, because it only makes sense that things would evolve into another area. When your body evolves and you become something, it only makes sense that the mind evolves. And if we're so much more evolved than other animals at this point, we can even comprehend other dimensions, it only makes sense that we can evolve into other dimensions. And that's kind of my aspect of my closing point. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks
Join
for
us next
watching.
time. Meta Perspective Podcast out.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Meta Perspective Podcast.